And good morning, everybody. I was really pleased to join you all last night and land to get a little bit understanding of your world. But what I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about this morning was how the sector is feeling at the moment, and also how we're going about conquering some of our challenges as well at the moment. And thank you very much, of course, to the team for putting on today and for inviting me to come along. As I say, it's great for me to understand a little bit more about your world. As Fraser said, my name's Chris Corkan. I'm the Regional Manager for Make UK across the Midlands and East of England. But more importantly, if you don't understand or haven't come across Make UK and who we are before, very quickly, we are the new name for EEF, the Engineering Employers Federation, and we are the national body for UK manufacturing, working with and representing more than 22,000 manufacturing businesses across all areas of our fantastic sector. I notice on the guest list this morning, people like Domino Printing, Global Inkjet, wherever you are in the room, also members of ours as well. And very much having started over 126 years ago, doing the national negotiations on behalf of the manufacturing sector, both within our regions and on behalf of government as well. In terms of what we're seeing at the moment, we've been running an economic survey now for over 30 years, detailing how we're performing. This is absolutely vital for us as the national body going into our discussions on behalf of the sector with government. We meet with the Business Secretary and other Cabinet Ministers on a weekly basis, very much feeding in and discussing the topics of the day, and of course at the moment very much in discussion in regards to the budget week today on the 17th of November. If I pause and take a look at this slide in terms of our detailing our output and orders, output in the red bars and orange in the orders, you can see there the kind of shock and impact of 2020, but also more brilliantly the fantastic resilience of the sector in terms of industrial recovery into 2021. But of course you can start to see there a bit of a dampening down of that buoyancy, and this is about positivity in terms of a direction of travel, in terms of our metric, and you can see, but on a quarter by quarter basis in this year, that positivity has been dampening. But very important to note, we are still in positive territory, and my day job is very much visiting manufacturers every day of the week, having been already this week to a composites manufacturer, Weetabix, and a medtech manufacturer. And most of our manufacturers at the moment, and hopefully many of you in the room, are feeling very strong demand for your products and services, and actually your order books are looking pretty good. You take the car industry at the moment, even our largest OEMs, despite all of their challenges, they have strong orders for their vehicles, but actually it's very much the difference there between the two bars in the orange and red that you can see in screen that's the real problem. Can we actually get the output to match what is that strong demand? And very, very different problem today than we had 2 years ago. And that is all about, can we get hold of our people in terms of recruitment? Can we retain those people? Can we get materials through the door? And have we got the cash flow and all those other challenges that we're seeing at the moment? And it is very much a struggle in terms of matching what has been, for most part of the last 18 months, really strong interest in our products and services. And looking at that in terms of the pressure of all those things, I talk about there, or loosely talk about supply chain there. This again detailing what we're seeing in terms of prices. You can see the prices in the red bars for UK and orange in export. And you can see that ever since we came out of the pandemic, seeing almost record prices across both international and domestic. But the impact there, you can see, but actually in 2021, margins didn't particularly suffer directly as a result of those increased prices. But actually, when you look in particularly this year, you can see in terms of the lines reflecting margins for UK and Europe, then we are being really struck hard. And actually the squeezing of that from things like the energy bills or eye-watering energy bills that we're all dealing with at the moment, whether it be at home, but more importantly within our businesses, depending on where you sit in your agreement with your energy supplier, is really kind of crippling the kind of profitability of members at the moment, despite that buoyancy in terms of order books at the moment. And when you look at the kind of forecasting bars surrounded by green at the end there, you can see that this is clearly not going away over the next 3 months, and given the energy market, probably not at least for the next 6 months, where of course we see the government support here in the UK. An industry price cap, so to speak, or capped industry support is probably a better way of thinking about it. And our discussions with government are very much, look, at the moment, the 6 months doesn't give the long-term stability that our sector needs. The government is very, very kind of clear and honest in saying, look, the review for our 6-month support at the 3-month mark is very, very important. We want to do that very much from an evidence-based, research-based and anecdotal discussions with manufacturers before making a decision. But I think, I think we already get the impression from our members, but actually the 6 months won't be strong enough given where we currently see the prices for gas and electric at the moment. And also thinking about some of those challenges on the flip side in terms of employment and investment. Again, you can see the similar trends from 2020 through to the last 18 months, 2 years. And actually, again, the dampening down there in both employment intentions and investment. The interesting thing to note really here in terms of that trend is that actually employment, although you can see the dampening down in terms of the red bars there towards the last few quarters of this year, again, the kind of forecasting ahead in terms of the surrounding of the green bar there is actually that the need for people is very much there. We've got over 90,000 vacancies within our sector. The ratio between vacancies in manufacturing compared to those seeking work is much worse in our sector than it is in retail. And given the time of year we're coming up to the festive period, we would expect retail to be the worst part of our economy in terms of that ratio, but actually that tension in our world is higher, not least because of the labour shortage everywhere in our economy, but obviously the skills gap and the technical skills that we need in our sector as well. And so the need for those people, and actually in some ways we are being driven a little bit more to what can we do more with less, and very much looking at productivity and that challenge there as well, which I'll come on to. But similar in terms of investment, the uncertainty we've had both through political decision making, global issues, global geopolitics is again having an impact there in terms of investment on ice, which I think you can see there from the orange line across the screen. And just to end in terms of their challenges, and hopefully this is the last you'll hear of some doom and gloom this morning before you get on to some much more innovative and advanced speakers this afternoon through the course of today, looking at where the sector is going forward, particularly in digital print. But it is very much around that labour challenge. It is around business rates re-evaluation for spring next year, which again will have another impact on the cost pressures we're already seeing, the ongoing supply chain shortages. We're seeing upper parts of the world, including the UK, think much more about right shoring. What can we make here a little bit more where we know we've got the security of supply, also working much more closely with friendlier countries around the world, and so on and so forth. And then the, of course, ongoing issues, which I already mentioned in terms of energy. But the really important thing I also want to talk to you about is that I think the best phrase I've heard in recent weeks from our manufacturers is stealing a quote from the legendary F1 Ayrton Senna that said, look, in the greatest conditions, in the sunniest of weathers, you cannot overtake 15 cars. But actually, when the rain is pouring and the conditions are not so good, you really can overtake those 15 cars. And actually what we're seeing is manufacturers are really rising up to the plate, and actually the bandwidth to do some of these things is not easy by any means, but we are seeing real sort of step up to the plate from our manufacturers. And just to pick out some really great examples in terms of the skills challenge there and investing in our people and changing our practices, we've got organisations like Lander Automotive in Birmingham making tubular components, particularly for the car industry, where they've got their on-site training provision of apprentices at a training school. They're all identified within the business and tagged as superheroes. They're all identified by wearing fluorescent tops throughout the year, very much as a culture of the business to say, look, if you see these individuals within our business, then please do step over, have a conversation with them, try and help them where they can, and really much investing in terms of their people and the talent pipeline for their business. And people like ADI Group, apology for the Birmingham-focused examples, where they're offering 14 to 16-year-olds a pre-apprenticeship. So every Friday through the course of the school year and working with their local school, they are offering people the decision for their future career at the steady heights of 16. And actually, as a business which employs around 800 people, nearly 10% of their workforce are apprentices as well. So again, real investment in our people, and something that they've been doing for a number of years. The pre-apprenticeship programme for those 14, 16-year-olds is much more diverse than what we see across the engineering sector. Something around a third of their people coming into the business are female, where actually, as a very strong engineering-based firm, it's only a 9% of UK manufacturing that engineers are female. But also some of our large members like Siemens committing a week of the year, very much thinking about well-being, both across financial well-being, which of course is a hot topic at the moment with the cost of living crisis, but also across other things like mental health and well-being, which of course we've all begun to reevaluate a little bit more from where we've stood in the pandemic. But organisations like Seco Tools in Worcestershire, where they're being identified as one of the best places to work in the UK, but also across Europe, having taken hybrid working much more seriously than before the pandemic. And organisations like Chilwell Products in Derbyshire, Precision Stamping Company, and Oxley Group, a defence components manufacturer in the northwest, who have jumped 2 feet first into a 4-day working week, having much greater productivity, much greater engagement with their staff, and really kind of putting their money where their mouth is. And actually, not too far up the A1 here in Peterborough is an organisation called Westcombe Engineering, where over half of their employees would be classified as mentally or physically disabled, and really saying to the world, well, actually, all we ever had to do was install a disabled toilet in our facility, and I'm pretty sure all of you have probably already got one of those anyway. And as part of that wider discussion, we've very much been involved in Make UK's National Manufacturing Day, where for the first time this year, on the 7th of July, we welcomed young people, friends and family, neighbourhoods, the local community to come and see what we do within manufacturing. The environment, the careers on offer, and what we make. My favourite example is the one in the bottom right, where a business not far from here in Chatteris in Cambridgeshire invited a group of schools to come and visit. They said to the schools, look, we only actually want female pupils on this particular day for our school engagement to battle that kind of gender inequality we have seen in our sector. And you can see a group of Year 5 girls seeing parts being made there for the nuclear industry. And it's very much something we want to, well, we don't want necessarily to see the positive discrimination year on year, but we do want to see that kind of level of engagement with our community on a year by year basis. And you can see even people like Domino and Photocentric, probably people more familiar to in this room, getting involved with that, along with hundreds of other companies this year as well. And we'll be back doing that again next year. And very much I'm aware that other countries around the world have been much better at doing this, and where can we learn from those as well. We're also seeing huge strides in the rise towards net zero, not least, frankly, because of the eye-watering energy costs at the moment, but also the UK having hosted COP26. We are seeing big strides being made towards net zero. The really positive thing is that over 16% of companies have been able to access new markets because of their efforts in decarbonisation their operations. But also you can see some of the top areas of activity at the moment. I mentioned about doing more with less, not just with our people and our kind of operations, but actually very much in terms of that, in terms of energy as well. And you can also see the installation of new equipment and also on-site generation kind of coming out as top of the pops in terms of a solution to some of those challenges. And again, given some of the pressures I mentioned earlier, actually the ability to do that has not been easy, and it is impressive that our manufacturers are pushing forward with this agenda regardless of the volatile market. And to end in terms of what we're seeing across digital technology, we've just looked at over the last 2 years how manufacturers have pushed forward in terms of adopting digital technology, and we are seeing a continued adoption. Of course, it's never going to kind of solve our productivity puzzle overnight, but you can see there not just on the shop floor, but actually in the back office, manufacturers are taking up digital technology, and it is all about being more productive, being more profitable, dealing with some of those challenges in the labour market, the better use of resources, all the other benefits associated there as well. And of course, what we want to see is from government a continued element of support and consistent support to help our SME manufacturers do that, but also a kind of systemic approach to some of our kind of support providers and people like the Institute for Manufacturing down the road here at Cambridge University, who do a great job, particularly on those back office functions and allowing the engagement between industry and some of those support mechanisms, taking what has already worked as low-hanging fruit into other areas of those, particularly that are early on their adoption cycle. And automation, of course, playing a really big part in terms of current processes. We see that there's a particular proportion that have already begun to replace operations of automation. There is an ambition, you can see there in the second bar, but actually will only continue in that vein of form as an overall trend. But also really importantly, the sort of chart at the bottom there shows that actually adopting technology and adopting automation is not about replacing the people within your business. It's very much about working hand in hand with those and creating higher skilled, higher value opportunities for those people. And the best example that I can share with you on that is we've got a machine shop down on the south coast which invested about 5 years ago now in robot welders. The team or so, and we're talking around 8 welders, came in to the managing director and said, look, I'm now really, really concerned about my job and my future within this organisation. And the MD turned around and said, well, actually, the robot welders are there to do the repeat business, the things that we'd expect month on month, rain or shine. And what that allows me to do is actually give you a better job going out there winning higher value business, more complicated work, probably more higher margin for the organisation. And since that period of time, it was 2 years later, where all those welders within the organisation were offered an over 30% pay increase because they very much went and did just that. So it is very much about being hand in hand with adoption of technology with our people as well. And very much leave things there, but if you do have any questions or want to do any political gossip with me about the manufacturing sector, then you'll probably find me hovering around the coffee machine for the rest of this morning. But I'll hand back to Fraser and go from there.